Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today is the end of the month and it's time for me to show you my whips and completed works for the whole of March. And as I had expected, I didn't really get through half of my ambitious ideas for March, but I did have a couple of wins this month. So instead of jumping through a lot of coloring books and having a lot of whips, I was able to really focus on each page and complete it before starting any new pages. And in the past 2 years that I've been coloring, or I think it's 2 years, that has been a bit of a challenge for me. I normally go and color what I feel like on the day, which has resulted in a lot of whips and very few completed works. So speaking of whips, I have been able to give you a couple more videos on the mini circles in Mermaids Dirty Roper by Rita Berman. I'm still about 4 to 6 hours from finishing this page, and it's really just because of the way I color. I color quite slowly. I wish I didn't. To be honest, I'm not sure if I know how to color quicker. So I just think I need to work on a bit of self-acceptance there. So this is what it's looking like at the moment. And I have gone and written down my plan for the rest of the pages. And I found this month, when I took pen to paper, wrote down my plan and listed everything that I wanted to do, it really helped focus me a lot more. So that was helpful. So here I've listed all the things I want to do for these circles. The background for the entire page is going to be a bit of an old map feel, and I'm going to use a very muted blue around the lines. So I haven't done as much as I wanted to do, and last week was a complete write-off because the boys and I fell sick with a really nasty cold. I did a COVID test and it was negative, but we spent most of the week and the weekend at home, and I just didn't feel like doing much filming because I've got this terribly niggly cough, and well, it's irritating for me to have to cough every few minutes, and I didn't want to film myself coughing and spluttering like an old car. So that's why this has been delayed, but at least I have a plan. I've planned it out. So this is still on my high priority list, and we're getting there. I know it's slow, and I'm sorry it's so slow. Like I said, and as you've seen in the videos, it took me 2 hours to do these two circles, the leaves, the teardrops, and I think these leaves. That was it. And I finished a little bit of this circle, and I did the compass. 2 hours to just do that. So that's what Mermaids Dirty Roper is looking like. And then I went and I got Selena Fenwick's Australian Animals, and I am sharing this with my youngest boy, who is currently been learning about Australia. So he gets the first half of the pictures. And he's done really well. I mean, this is his half, and I mean, he's picked up some really cute colors and just really goes for it. He's, 7, and so this is his half. And then I do this side, and I used Inktense for the base. So I've mapped all the colors out using Inktense, and then I planned out my colors and where possible, and I've swatched them as I'm going along so I can see what I'm doing. So here, the water flower using polys, it's not going to work for me. I need it a bit more vibrant than that, so I'm possibly going to switch over to Prismacolors or maybe even Artesas. And then I've started shading in the teal of the bee. This here has been done with polychromos, so I'm really using polychromos over Inktense for this page, and then I'll see what to do with the background later when I get to it. So that is my whip in Australian Animals by Selena Fennick. Next was a page. So this page is in Mermaids Coloring Heaven Special with the pages by Anastasia Eli Caldereva, and I copied it onto just normal cardstock, so it's nothing extremely wow. You can see I was using markers, and I went to another Facebook coloring group and I asked, how do I color her dress, because I want to color it transparent, and I just didn't know how to do it. And a lovely lady called Ashley, she immediately went and did me a video on her YouTube channels, which is Ashley's Coloring Journey, and I'll put a tag here on the screen for you. And she used pink and she colored it in with markers, and she was showing me how to do it. So I tried, and I got really curious to see if I could layer up skin color just using markers. And as you can see, it's gross. It's really gross. Oh my goodness. I should have kept my curiosity at bay, because I think if I just done a base coat and then gone over it with Prismas like Ashley had suggested, it would have looked much better. But she's a mix of pink and grey and yellow, and it doesn't blend at all nicely. And I'm not using any fancy markers. I bought my boys the Touchstar markers, which have really got some really good colors. It's a little bit of a limited palette, and I did get a little bit of a blend on the dress, but the skin threw me, and I think that the pink colors, I've got a dark pink, and then I picked out two lighter shades, and I think they were too close together, and it was more two lights instead of a mid-tone. So I carried on with the idea, and it was a great practice. I'm not good at all with markers. They are a challenge for me. I think watercolor is easier for me to get my head around than markers. I think because it's just so permanent. What I did learn though is with these particular markers, I can almost like get rid of any errors here. So you can see it's lightened up the shadow compared to, over here. So that was interesting, and I suppose that's because of the blending. But I've decided I'm going to continue with the coloring tutorial, but I'm going to use pencils because I'm most comfortable with pencils, and I'm going to continue encouraging myself to keep trying markers. And even if I just copy a picture onto my cardstock, have a play, and if I don't like it, I've still got the original, and I can use pencils or Neocolors or Inktense or any of the other things I have. So I think this is a lot of wins, and yay for learning. But for now, this is my the picture I'm really wanting to do in April. I think she's going to look absolutely exquisite. Then I went into Goddesses by Marty Noble, and I completed my Egyptian goddess Isis, and I had a lot of fun with this. I used Castle Arts and Sakura Jelly Roll. I used Inktense here on this border, and then I went and bought myself some metallic paint pens. I bought these metallic paint pens, water-based. They have 2mm nib, so it's quite a thick nib. You can use them for rock painting as well. And if I can open this thing. So those are the colors. And then this one here is not white, it's actually a blender. So I used the blue, the gold, and the red on the vase here, and also on the hair over here and over here, and at the base of the vase. So it was mainly on the vase, and then on these symbols here, I forget what they're called, and over here. And then I went over it, over the lines with a black Prismacolor, just to redefine the vase again. So what I found with this paper, I'm not convinced Castle Arts likes this paper. It was very difficult to blend and layer, and in some ways that made it a quicker picture to color, and in other ways it was difficult to color. I like to push the layers quite a bit. In the end though, I'm very pleased with how it turned out. I do think I might have made a mistake with the blue border though. I think if I had done maybe a slightly darker brown than this on this side, it could have worked out. But overall, I'm very pleased with her. I love that I did her dress light. It keeps her as the center focus. And again, I did take inspiration from Coloring with Elena. She did this page in the same colors, and I did refer to that a few times. So that is Goddesses by Marty Noble. Then I went into Coloring Heaven's Gods and Goddesses Special with designs by Josh Lee. And I think this is one of my best pictures for the month. So what I did is I went onto the internet and I found photos of other people's artwork, paintings, drawings for Enya, Goddess of War. And I knew I wanted to do browns and reds and gold. So this is what I did. I used Prismacolor for the skin, the clouds, the plume, and the background here, the sky background. But over the sky, I went with a bit of a solvent. I used this Sansador by Winsor & Newton. It's a low odor solvent. It's actually from a painting kit I got many years ago. And so I know this was, the solvent in particular is just meant to be used with oil paintings. And I also have a different, I think it's like an oil varnish to go over and seal an oil painting. But I tested it and it does seem to work in a similar fashion to your Gamsol and your Zested, based on what I've seen on YouTube videos. So I used that to blend out the sky and also not destroy the tooth of the paper in case I wanted to add more layers. I got a little confused with what was arm and what was dress, so I was able to jump onto the Coloring Heaven Facebook group and ask, and was very fortunate to have the illustrator answer some of my questions, which I found really, really helpful. And then taking the pictures that I used for inspiration, I went and I planned out all the colors and this hair. So I planned the entire page out and I wrote it down. And I, again, felt that that really helped me to just have my ideas on paper and kind of keep me on track. So the hair, I got the recipe from Kirsty Partridge Art, and then everything else I kind of just went on my own. The dress was inspired by an oil painting, I think. I found a picture on Pinterest, so I'll pop it up here for you. And I'll also show you the sky and cloud idea I was going for. And then I used a different Pinterest picture to just show me how to do the back of the shield, because I wasn't quite sure what colors to use. I didn't want to use too much gold and then it's out of balance. And then I wanted leather straps kind of coming off her belt. So I think she's really, really gorgeous, and I'm very, very proud of how she's turned out. I think she's definitely one of my best pictures. I did also use white Sakura Jelly Roll for little details on the clouds and to cover up the black lines by the highlights. So that is what I've done in Gods and Goddesses by Josh Lee. I then had an impromptu desire to play with charcoal pencils. I have a couple of Derwent charcoal pencils lying around and they hardly ever get touched. My inner child was actually kind of rearing to touch charcoal pencils again, and the reason being I grew up as a kid in rural Mozambique. My parents were missionaries, so just give you a very brief background. I grew up in rural Mozambique until I was a teenager. There were hardly anything. It was as rural got, and it was in the 90s. So minimal electricity. We had certain hours where the electricity was on unless it was for emergencies, and then my parents would switch on the electricity for a full 24/7 while they were running the factory, which made a nutritious porridge, which would then go out to the poor people who were in need of emergency relief, or to the soup kitchens at the various schools that so also like art supply stores, you didn't get them. Literally we would have to drive 10 minutes from home to the local town, and it was basically just a local market with a few shops owned by one person, one rich person in the area. So in the 90s, I think it was late 90s, when Leonardo DiCaprio and Kate Winslet did the Titanic movie. It became my dad's absolute favorite movie I still think it's of all time. And we watched it over and over again because we didn't have, TV programs. We literally had video cassettes. And every 6 to 8 weeks, we'd get a mailbag sent to us with the people that would come and bring us, our next supply of groceries and mail, and just kind of like say hello. And in that mailbag would often be taped movies or taped TV series, and then that's what we would watch until the next 6 to 8 weeks came. And Titanic was amongst them, and we watched it over and over again. But my preteen self absolutely loved how Leonardo DiCaprio took charcoal and sketched out Kate Winslet and made her into this incredibly beautiful drawing. And I then was so inspired to take my mom's artificial flowers and create my own still life, and to have some charcoal practice. Bearing in mind, I had no YouTube. There was no such thing as Facebook. It was literally, you have graphite pencils and you take an animated DVD cover and you try copy it. And that's how I taught myself how to draw. So my charcoal sketches ended up being charcoal out of the barbecue fire. And my hands were covered in charcoal, and I remember drawing it out and doing the whole charcoal shading and everything, and there'd be black smudges all over my page. But it was a load of fun, and I'm glad I tried. So I decided to take Selena Fenwick's Coloring Mermaids in a Calm Ocean, and I decided to color this page in using charcoal pencils as sort of like a visit to my childhood. I used a white Sakura jelly roll to create the strands of hair in her hair. I wanted her hair to be white, and I also went over quite a lot of the thick black lines. And then I used it for highlights and as well as a black line remover. And I think I may have needed to have layered her up a little bit more than I did, especially here by the neck. It seems to kind of like get a little lost. But overall, I think that I was able to translate what I've learned in adult coloring, pick up charcoal pencils and color it in this way. And I really do have a lot to learn about charcoal pencils, but it was a lot of fun, and I really enjoyed doing it. It was really quick. It took me like 2 hours. So that's my bit of background history and my visit to the past in Mermaids Calm Ocean by Selena Fenwick. And then finally, I went into Lena Dooley's The Flower Year, and I really am enjoying this book. I'm hoping to every month color at least one page in here. I'd like to do more. And I find what I like is that, you know, the illustrations are realistic, so you can really try and color them in realistically, but also if you don't want to, you don't have to. And I quite enjoy that there's a lot of reference to at the back of the book. We have all the names of the plants that she uses in each picture, which helps a lot with color palettes. So at least I don't have to worry about what colors to use. So here I went to Coloring with Elena. She has done a whole series of videos on this book. I have hardly colored in leaves, so I wasn't sure with all these leaves how to color them in a way that they wouldn't get too lost on each other. And so I used Coloring with Elena's video to just help me with colors for each of the leaves. She uses Prismacolor in her video for the same page. I used polys for the leaves, so I matched the colors up as best I could, and I swatched it out. And this will be also a bit of a reference for me, and as I go through the book, I'll refer back to some of these colors as well, and I'll possibly continue going through her videos just to see what other combinations for leaves she has, and from there at least have something to work with. So I also did follow her tutorial, her section with the blue creeping flowers. I did those with Prismacolor, and I used a bright, I think it's like a fluorescent neon orange gel pen I have just lying around, so I used that. The crocuses I drew inspiration from Pinterest and from my garden and the crocuses outside when we go for walks to town. And that's why they're a combination. So these three here are kind of mimicking the crocuses in my garden. And then these are more the standard pinky purple crocuses. So I did those on my own. I didn't refer to any video, but I did have reference photos, and I used Prismacolors. Then for the daffodils, I used Prismacolors, but I followed Chris Cheng's, I suppose you could say, recipe. So all the colors she uses, and then I listed out how she built up the layers, and then I just did the same thing here. So that was a Chris Cheng tutorial I used to help me with that. And the combination of light grays and greens with the yellow to create the shadows was a very interesting learning experience. In some ways, I doubted whether the shadows were too dark, but overall I think it's come out really, really well. And I used just cheap pastels for the background. It's just really, really light. Don't know if you can see it. So I did it really lightly because I didn't want to take attention away from the bouquet. And the reason I picked this particular page is I really wanted to do daffodils, just as a memory to my gran. She passed away a few years back, but she was Scottish, and she moved from Scotland to South Africa, and daffodils were her favorite flower. And then I hopped over here to the grape hyacinths, which I'll put up a picture of my grape hyacinths, and I used them as inspiration. Distress ink for the background, and I spritzed it, and then I used a very light polychromos brown pencil just to create a bit of grass and shade or shadow. And it was polychromos for all of it, with white Sakura Jelly Roll for highlights. And I'm currently working on this page, which I've taken screenshots of all the photos on Pinterest, just to see colors and get an idea of where to place them. So this is what I'm planning on finishing up over the month of April. And that is all my colored works and whips for the month of March. I have planned out my coloring plan for April. So I have, these are the whips I want to finish. The one in the Australian animals with the bee. I've got 3 Amarantine whips, 1 Mysteria whip, which I'm busy doing as a video. And I've got one whip in Coloring Heaven Mermaids I want to finish. As far as videos are going, it's the Mysteria one, the mini circles, and then the Hannah Carlson Lady of the Night. So this is in Midnight Masquerade by Hannah Carlson. So I've done this side for you, and I want to complete this side for you. So I've already started some of the video. I just haven't uploaded it to YouTube yet. I want to get the whole page done, and then I can release the videos one after the other. So I want to have this whip done in April. Then I have a page in Mythographic Paradise I want to complete. I want to carry on in the Flower Year by Layla Dooley, and then the Jellyfish Mermaid in Coloring Heaven. I want to do that and follow Ashley's coloring journey tutorial, and then I want to join in a couple of color alongs. So I'm adding in Romantic Country number 2 by Airy, and hopefully I can get all of this done. So I've made little tick boxes, and I can just tick them as I go, and we can see how much I actually get done. So that's my April plan. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you enjoyed this video, and have a great rest of your week, and I will see you in the next video. Take care.